a slightly edited conversation about tech. I feel like there's been a lot of fatigue within the tech community when it comes to the phone specifically. I feel like this wave of iPhone has been the most underwhelming type of release that I have ever seen Apple do. I feel like it's always been a meme that Apple releases the same phone every single year. And although there's some truth to that in the type of form factor that they like to follow, it is incremental, but it's something that you can look at and say, at least there's one core feature that I get on this iPhone that I don't get on this iPhone. Perfect example of this, I think, is the iPhone 13 to 14 launch. On the 14, you got the dynamic island. You really didn't get that much more battery life or anything like that. But the key feature on the iPhone 14 was this dynamic island. I don't think it's that crazy of a thing to say that the dynamic island is just a nice to have, but not necessarily something that was groundbreaking or a reason to switch to the 14 or the 15. That being said, I even made a video about it. The fact that I like it, I think it's nice. And I think an otherwise just black part of your screen that houses the camera and face scanner, I think them making a functional part of your screen and something that can dynamically change between information and other things that you have running in the background, I think is a really cool thing and something that Apple should get a little bit of praise for. But again, not the reason you're upgrading and not a good enough reason to do so. And then from 15, and then from 14, you go to 15, and then that's even less of an upgrade. I think people were willing to say, you know what, this is a year that's, not the best when it comes to upgrades, but we'll look forward to next year when it's even better from going to the 14 to the 16. And now that the 16 has come out, people realize that, oh, Apple really is just doing very incremental things and didn't have really enough content to put into the new thing. So they just added another button and called it a day. At least that's what the sentiment is. But I don't think I've ever seen such a disdain like I have this year for Apple just doing an incremental change like they have for the last couple of generations. People are jumping to Google, people are jumping to Samsung, even people who are 10 years in the Apple ecosystem and really heavily invested in it, have everything tethered to their life, are willing to go to the Google Pixel or to a Samsung device. And I've just never seen this kind of jump, especially though the Z Flip 6. People are very interested in both that and the Google Pixel are probably the two things that I see people switch to more often than not. And I think that's really cool. I'm very excited to see a future, and this might be a pivotal moment in history, in US technological phone history, where Apple might start seeing a decline in not only their sales, but overall domination in the US market. And maybe we could stray away from just having priority iMessage, blue bubble, green bubble war, and we start seeing the rise of the Android devices again and seeing really interesting choices when it comes to what phone do you have. It's not the iPhone 17, 16. It might be a Google Pixel. It might be a Samsung device. It might be a OnePlus device. But I'm kind of predicting that if Apple next year just sticks to their guns and does, you know what, this is the iPhone 17, it's a little bit better. Maybe we added one more little thing. I think people are really going to start to jump ship. Even the people who are kind of teetering right now and just getting influenced a little bit more by the people who are completely off the ship now. I think by the iPhone 17, you're going to see a huge decline in their sales. And not only that, you'll see a big rise in Pixel in particular. If the 10 follows the same footsteps as the 9, follows the same form factor, and just refines everything a little bit better, you'll definitely start to see a lot more Google Pixels and a lot more Samsungs, especially if Samsung decides, you know what, we need to follow the form factor that Google did and create a phone that's going to be a little bit closer to the iPhone, so it's a little bit friendlier when it comes to the switch. Maybe doing a little bit of a software refresh when it comes to just the overall look, and then also doing a Samsung S25 at this point, and get the body type to look a little bit closer to iPhone while still keeping the design language of the Samsung kind of aesthetic. All this to say, I think Apple definitely did do a misstep this year and hopefully can correct it with the iPhone 17. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like the last couple of years of Android, Samsung and Google in particular, haven't been a little bit more stale in their iterations as well. Like, we're not gonna sit here and act like they're doing groundbreaking stuff year over year either. Although Samsung and Google are both more interesting in their own respects, I think it is plenty fair to point out that Pixel has carried over the same form factor for the past probably 3 years, tweaking it a little bit, making it a little bit more premium, and with the Pixel 9 probably being the most premium that the Pixel has felt probably ever. And then Samsung, since the S22, really hasn't changed their form factor that much either. I think their camera hump has changed pretty significantly in the look of it, but overall the hardware being pretty similar year over year, and you'll see a spec bump every year, which is nice to have, but definitely not something groundbreaking and a reason to switch over. Do I think phone companies should strive to do things more experimentally? Absolutely. I've said that in the past. I think experimental phone companies are really fun. You can see things like CMF, who are doing just wacky things with colors, the textures, the actual feel of the phone when it comes to the hardware. And then also other companies like Nothing with their transparent design. I think it looks really, really cool. Is very experimental and is maybe for a smaller audience, but overall it can grow. And the features that are taken from these companies, or features that are iterated into something a little bit more refined, I think should be something that should be praised, should be celebrated, and should be paid attention to. People should care about these things, because if we cared about these things, we would stray away from companies doing year-over-year updates with small little things that does improve the quality of life of the phone, to be fair, but overall doesn't really make you feel excited about the technology that you have in your pocket. I can go into so much more, like the iPad mini disaster, that I think is still something that we should have expected more from Apple to do, and I was let down very hard because I love this tablet so much. I think it's really nice. I have an M1 iPad Air, but I would have traded that in an instant if they did something warrant that trade-in, but I don't feel like they did. I can get into that in a whole nother video, but this was plenty long. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Let me know what you think about the current phone market, maybe even one that you're thinking about getting in the near future or in the next year that's coming up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Jesus Christ, that's so much ranch.